It starts quietly, almost invisibly, the way the biggest changes always do. There is no siren, no emergency broadcast, no single announcement that makes headlines for weeks. Yet, in 2026, something fundamental shifts for Canadian pensioners, and the effects are already moving through bank accounts, government offices, and kitchen table conversations across the country. This is not a future promise or a distant plan. This is happening now, and understanding it clearly could mean the difference between stability and uncertainty for millions of retirees and those about to become one. At the center of the 2026 update is a recalibration of how retirement income works in Canada, driven by demographics, inflation pressure, and long-term sustainability concerns. Canada is aging faster than many people realize. A larger share of the population is now over 65, and fewer workers are contributing for each retiree. This reality forces changes that are not optional, even if they are uncomfortable. The government's approach in 2026 is not to dismantle the pension system, but to fine-tune it in ways that directly affect monthly payments, eligibility timing, and how benefits interact with rising living costs. One of the most important updates involves adjustments to payment amounts across major federal pension programs. Old age security and the Canada Pension Plan continue to be indexed to inflation, but the way this indexing plays out in 2026 reflects a new baseline shaped by several years of high cost of living increases. For pensioners, this means monthly payments are higher in nominal terms than they were just a few years ago, but the increase does not always feel like a raise. Housing, groceries, utilities, and healthcare costs have risen sharply, and the 2026 adjustments are designed to prevent purchasing power from eroding further rather than dramatically improving living standards. The Canada Pension Plan in 2026 also reflects the ongoing impact of CPP enhancement measures that were phased in over previous years. Workers who contributed more under the enhanced CPP rules are now beginning to see the results as they retire. For new retirees in 2026, CPP benefits can be noticeably higher than for those who retired a decade earlier, assuming similar earnings histories. This is not a bonus or a temporary top-up. It is the structural outcome of higher contribution rates and expanded earnings coverage. However, this also creates a growing gap between long-time retirees and new ones, a gap that is becoming more visible and, for some, more frustrating. Old age security remains a cornerstone of retirement income, but in 2026, it continues to be shaped by age-based distinctions that many Canadians still misunderstand. Those aged 75 and older receive a permanently higher OAS amount compared to those aged 65 to 74, reflecting recognition that expenses and vulnerability tend to increase with age. In 2026, this higher tier is firmly embedded in the system, and its financial impact is significant for seniors who cross that age threshold. For those approaching 75, this is not a small detail. It is a turning point in monthly income. At the same time, the OAS clawback threshold remains a critical factor for higher-income seniors. In 2026, as incomes adjust and investment returns fluctuate, more retirees find themselves unexpectedly close to the recovery tax zone. This means careful planning matters more than ever. A modest increase in taxable income can lead to a reduction in OAS benefits, effectively creating a higher marginal tax rate for seniors who cross that line. The system is designed to target benefits toward those who need them most, but in practice, it can catch people off guard if they are not paying attention. Another major element shaping 2026 is the Guaranteed Income Supplement. GIS remains one of the most powerful tools for supporting low-income seniors, and its importance has grown as living costs rise. In 2026, GIS amounts are adjusted to reflect updated income thresholds, but eligibility remains tightly linked to reported income. This creates a situation where even small changes in income, such as modest employment earnings or investment income, can affect benefit levels. For seniors relying on GIS, understanding these rules is not optional. It directly affects whether the system works for them or against them. For younger Canadians watching closely, it raises questions about what retirement will look like for them. Healthcare-related costs also play an increasingly important role in the pension discussion in 2026. While healthcare itself is not directly part of pension programs, the financial pressure it creates is impossible to ignore. Seniors face higher out-of-pocket expenses for prescriptions, dental care, vision care, and long-term care services. Pension updates in 2026 do not fully offset these rising costs, which means retirees must stretch their fixed incomes further. This reality makes the predictability of pension payments even more critical because there is less room for error when unexpected expenses arise. Taxation remains another key factor shaping the real value of pension income. In 2026, federal and provincial tax brackets continue to adjust, but not always at the same pace as inflation. This means some pensioners experience a form of silent erosion as more of their income becomes taxable at higher rates. For those with multiple income sources, such as CPPPO-AS private pensions and RRIF withdrawals, the combined tax impact can be complex. The system rewards careful planning and penalizes inattention. One of the less discussed but highly consequential updates in 2026 involves delayed retirement choices. Canadians can still choose to take CPP as early as 60 or delay it until 70, with corresponding reductions or increases in monthly benefits. In 2026, with higher baseline benefit amounts due to CPP enhancement, the financial stakes of this decision are higher than ever. Delaying CPP can result in significantly larger payments for life, but it also requires alternative income in the meantime. This is not a simple math problem. It is a strategic decision that shapes financial security well into old age. For pensioners already receiving benefits, 2026 brings a mixture of reassurance and unease. On one hand, the system continues to function. Payments arrive, indexing continues, and core programs remain intact. On the other hand, the margin for comfort feels thinner. Every adjustment seems designed to maintain balance rather than provide relief. This creates a sense that the system is stable but strained, reliable but under pressure. Regional differences also matter more than ever. Cost of living varies widely across Canada, and pension programs are national in scope. A payment that feels barely adequate in a high-cost urban center may stretch further in a smaller community. In 2026, this gap becomes more pronounced, not because pension rules differ by region, but because economic realities do. This places an additional burden on seniors to make housing and lifestyle decisions that align with their fixed incomes. Pensioners who have additional savings or workplace pensions generally fare better, while those without them rely more heavily on GIS and other support. Public perception of pensions also shifts in 2026. There is less talk of dramatic reforms and more focus on incremental adjustments. This can create a false sense of calm. The absence of headlines does not mean nothing is changing. It means changes are happening quietly, embedded in formulas, thresholds, and indexing mechanisms that most people never read. For pensioners, staying informed becomes a form of self-defense. The emotional dimension of these updates should not be underestimated. Retirement is supposed to represent security after decades of work. When pension updates feel technical or insufficient, they can undermine that sense of security. In 2026, many seniors feel caught between gratitude that the system exists and anxiety about whether it will be enough. This tension defines the pension landscape more than any single policy decision. Looking forward from 2026, the message is clear but unsettling. The system is holding, but it is being tested. Adjustments are calibrated, cautious, and deliberate. There are no sweeping expansions, no dramatic cuts, just constant fine-tuning. For current pensioners, this means vigilance. For future retirees, it means planning earlier and more aggressively than previous generations might have needed to. Ultimately, what is new for Canadian pensioners in 2026 is not a single benefit or rule change. It is a shift in tone. The system feels more exposed to economic forces, more sensitive to individual circumstances, and more dependent on personal decisions. Security is still there, but it is no longer taken for granted. Understanding the updates is not about chasing headlines. It is about recognizing how small changes accumulate into real-life consequences. As 2026 unfolds, pensioners who pay attention, ask questions, and understand their entitlements are better positioned to navigate this evolving landscape. Those who assume nothing has changed risk being surprised later. The system is still working, but it demands awareness. Subscribe for clear updates and explanations. Share this with anyone who depends on a Canadian pension.